Well, as just shown in the previous report, Vice President Kamala Harris hasn't been nominated officially yet, but it seems that she has the backing of most of the Democrats. For our weekly focus this week, we have our presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young in the studio to discuss what's ahead and the possible implications for America's allies. Welcome, Sooyoung.
Hi, Eugene. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So let's first start with the Harris campaign. How is the transition going?
Right, so almost immediately, I would say, the Biden campaign turned into the Harris campaign with the blessing of various senior Democrats, including the Clintons, former Secretary of State John Kerry, Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer, and Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Over $80 million were raised within a day of Harris announcing her run for presidency, marking the highest 24-hour fundraising of any candidate in US history. She raised over $100 million as of Tuesday evening, with more than 1.1 unique million donors. So despite assumptions that there would be other possible challenges, it does seem that Kamala Harris will likely clinch the nomination unchallenged pretty much by August 7th, as the party is clearly getting behind her in the fight against Donald Trump.
So the ultimate question seems like, can Harris compete with former President Donald Trump? Because the former president has said that she'll be easier to beat than Biden.
Well, observers actually say that she's quite a formidable challenger for Donald Trump. A poll by Reuters and Ipsos shows that she is currently leading Trump 44% to his 42%. And this really compares to the previous week's poll, where Biden fell behind Trump with a marginal 2-point deficit. So if anything, I say that Donald Trump is probably sensing a greater sense of threat to his campaign with Kamala Harris as his main opponent. First of all, she is relatively younger than him at 59 years old compared to his 76. And second, she would represent the first US president to be a Black and an Asian American woman at the same time. And during her career as a prosecutor, she was known as being very capable and rather tough on crime. And in recent months, it seems that she's been stepping up beyond the duties traditionally expected of the vice president to speak up on issues like abortion rights, the war in Gaza, and race as well, making over 60 trips out of Washington, D.C. so far this year, according to the New York Times.
I think that she'll highlight the successes of the Biden administration, especially some of the bipartisan initiatives that he was able to get support for in terms of like the infrastructure bill. I think that as far as the reduction of inflation, the voters have made it clear what they want: a strong economy, continued low unemployment, reduction in inflation and gas prices. And I think those are the things that Biden and his administration can get criticism for. But I think that she's going to point out to the American voter that she is not Joe Biden, that even though she was his running mate, even though they served together for 4 years, there are some things that he achieved that she helped him achieve. But she is not just someone who was just his second person. She is going to be her own person. And she's going to focus on the things that the American voter is saying that he or she wants.
Harris admittedly does have some chinks in the armor when it comes to her lack of experience in foreign policy. Also, her involvement in border policy, which is, of course, one of Donald Trump's favorite target points. Trump, in his rally in North Carolina, he's already lashed out at Kamala Harris, calling her the worst vice president in history and more liberal than Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. He's even protested against her gaining access to the Biden campaign funds.
Well, I guess another big question is her running mate. So how would they help her take on Trump?
Right, well, that's what everybody wants to know at this point, right? Who her running mate is going to be. And indeed, there does seem to be a number of likely candidates. But the Harris campaign is going to have to decide very soon on the second name on their ticket, as the Democrats will begin voting on the nominee from August 1st until August 7th. According to Professor Austin, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania are quite likely choices.
Pennsylvania is a must-win state for her, and it has 20 electoral college votes, and she really needs to win that state. Josh Shapiro is a Democrat, very popular. He even is more popular than Joe Biden. He won by a significant margin, and so he would be a good person to have as her running mate. Mark Kelly hasn't been in the U.S. Senate for as long a period of time. He's only been there for a brief period of time, but he's very popular. His wife, Gabby Giffords, was in Congress. She was, shot while she was in Congress, and he received a lot of publicity for that, but also as an astronaut. He has some foreign policy experience. He has some military experience as well.
And Sooyoung, last but not least, what do we know about her foreign policy and how would this affect the Korean Peninsula?
Right, so admittedly, she is relatively inexperienced when it comes to foreign affairs, but she's had opportunities to learn from the job, having visited more than 19 countries and meeting with more than 150 foreign leaders, according to the White House website. And also, she must have learned firsthand from Joe Biden, who's been a foreign policy president, and he's believed in restoring a rules-based global order, supporting Ukraine and the freedom of navigation, peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. It's therefore likely that she'll continue his policy of working closely with America's allies on strengthening cooperation between democracies and countering threats to global security by autocratic powers, especially when it comes to America's alliance with South Korea and their cooperation with Japan. Harris would most likely build up on their trilateral cooperation mechanism on security, economic security, semiconductors, AI, health, and other crucial areas. In fact, she has met with President Yoon Suk-yeol on various occasions, including when she made a solo trip to Seoul in 2022. Also, her husband, he even led a delegation to attend Yoon's inauguration ceremony earlier that year. Personally, I've heard her speaking very favourably about South Korean culture too. She's talked about receiving BTS at the White House and also how her niece is a fan of K-pop. When it comes to trade, Harris will also probably support Joe Biden's industrial policies, which are admittedly quite mercantilist in nature, and it does put some pressure on allies to invest in America. But she would presumably work with allies at the same time on strengthening economic cooperation and resilience against China in key areas like supply chains, AI, 6G, all under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which Trump has threatened to scrap. When it comes to North Korea, Kamala Harris is likely to maintain the current administration's approach to Pyongyang as well, which is consistent in calling for denuclearization as well as human rights in the North, in line with Seoul's own audacious initiative. In 2019, she said that Trump was, quote, punked by Pyongyang as the former president failed to clinch a deal to denuclearize North Korea. So we're not going to be expecting any so-called love letters between Harris and Kim Jong-un. She's not going to claim to be best friends with Xi Jinping either, already having voiced her support for Taiwan.
So we have over 100 days until voters go to the polls, so we'll see what happens.
That's right. 3 months can be an eternity in politics, so we'll have to see.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for your report today, Sooyoung. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Eugene.